Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the TheP-LotPodcast. John here, joined once again with the main man himself, Michael Angelillo. Michael, how you doing, dude? What's going on? How we feeling?
We are we're doing all right.
Semi-content?
Yeah, we're doing all right. I Today we're not gonna try to be like too negative, especially about the basketball team at the moment. Um, but we're doing all right. Sixers battling it out, Flyers grinding, I guess you could call it. But yeah, John, how are you doing on this fine Cinco de Mayo evening?
I'm doing good. I was upset. Obviously, I was upset last night with the results of the basketball team and the hockey team, but we'll get into that tonight. That's the topic for tonight's show. Overall, I'm excited, man. I was talking with some of my buddies about the schedule for the NFL, obviously, because we're Eagles season ticket holders. We also both work jobs with PTO. We would like to both know what
Yeah,
we
sure,
need to
sure.
use it to put it in, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And dude, don't you feel like around this is the time the schedule gets released?
Yeah, is it the next couple weeks, right?
Yes, I feel like it was sooner. I don't know, but
It might have been a week sooner, honestly. I feel like we'd have more leaks by now, but I guess nothing's come out yet. But
because
yeah,
that's one
we'll
of
keep
our
an eye
big
on
because
that.
one of our big shows of the year is usually we go over the Eagles schedule.
We do our way too early schedule predictions. But today we have just a basketball and hockey focus for everybody. Before we talk about Sixers Knicks, I want to take a few minutes here to to celebrate. We'll call it a celebration because it's worthy of one. It is something that neither of us have seen in our lifetimes. It's something that is very rare to do in NBA history. It's very hard to do in sports as a whole, but especially in the NBA, coming back from down 3 games to one. It's historic levels of comeback in terms of pre-series underdogs and favorites. It deserves a lot of praise, and it's something that honestly, regardless of what does occur, it's something that I'm definitely going to very fondly remember the 2026 first round series against the Boston Celtics. From everything really surrounding it, the big losses to battling out and grinding out wins, multiple wins in Boston, Embiid coming back from his appendectomy, um, finding out now Nick Nurse was dealing with a death in the family during the series, like all that sort of stuff, all the trash talk, all the byproduct post series trash talk, all the poking of the bear, the fans, everything. It's something that was truly, truly an experience that I'm not going to let just die in faint memory. It is something that deserves to be celebrated, deserves to be kind of cherished for the Sixers fan base. Absolutely. It's something that we've been waiting for a long time.
Yeah, so I think if we're going to talk about this series and what happened before we get into Sixers Knicks, I think it's really important that we probably I think it's fair to us to go revisit our takes originally when it was first announced it was going to be Sixers Celtics at
Mhm.
first. So I know for myself. So I think me, like a lot of other people, was thinking it was going to be Celtics in five or Celtics in six. We didn't know Joel was going to come back from his
Yeah.
appendectomy. I thought it would have been pretty wild for him to rush back that quick because people thought, the reports were that, oh, if he were to come back, it would probably be in the second round if they made it there.
Mhm.
And as soon as they won their first play-in game and got matched up with Boston, I was like, I kind of maybe we should have lost that game against the Magic so we could play the Pistons. And lo and behold, the Pistons had to come back down 3-1 themselves to beat the Magic, who don't even want to play for their coach anymore. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
that was kind of where we were at. And then they got smoked the first game without Embiid. Then the second game, they won. And we were like, what the? Or it was like we were all like, kind of like, huh?
Yeah, no, it was a game that the Celtics obviously shot poorly. That's a very big trend in the series, but it's a game that Edgecombe was tremendous in. Maxey was very good, and Paul George, he had a great series. And they played like a pretty high level of defense. And honestly, when he first got his appendix removed, I kind of it just felt like game 4 was like the right timeline. But then in the days leading up, it really felt like game 3 was a big possibility, big probability at that point for Embiid to come back. And it almost felt like him not coming back was like somewhat of a letdown. The game, like to the team, maybe a little bit. The game was very close. They just couldn't pull it out in the end. They shot poorly from three. The Sixers, Edgecombe did not have a good day. Not that we talked about this at the time. Don't want to put a ton on the 20-year-old, in the playoffs, but it was one of those things where just he didn't hit any threes and he had some good looks, and it definitely would have turned the tide of the game. Regardless, Embiid comes back game 4, clearly like needed the the knock off the rust game, and he played very poorly, and the whole team played very poorly. And they got railed.
I
They
think
got
we skipped
absolutely
over an
hammered.
important detail from game 3. Jason Tatum killed the Sixers in that game in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, it was a very classic Tatum.
And
Bad
puts
first
her
half. Team gets them up big, and then he like cooks at the end to make it look his stats
right,
kind of look better than they
right.
were.
And then so my buddy and I were watching day 2 of the NFL draft, and then we were following it along with the game on our phones. And he was like, I was like, do you want to put the game on and we'll just change over from the draft? Because at that point it was like end of the second, into the third. Like, I don't think the Eagles picked Markel Bell yet, you know?
Right.
And I was like, nah, I don't want to jinx them and put the game on and they'll lose. Because,
Superstitions.
you know, but, I was thinking like, oh my gosh, like, okay, they're fighting, this isn't like, they're not laying down and dying. I just have those memories of Joel, like, just dropping dunks down 35 points against the Celtics in game 7 after the refs get the game 6,
Right, right.
and
So they
Harden's.
didn't quit, and that was the big thing that um teams of Sixers past have kind of fell victim to a little bit. And all year this team has been pretty resilient. So it shouldn't come to a total surprise. But the way that they turned up the defensive intensity, that's not something we saw super consistently. We saw their defensive strategy really bite them in the butt all season, overhelping, giving up good looks on threes all the time, not the overhelping, putting you out of position for rebounds. And then the defensive intensity really picked up in games 5, 6, and 7. And they made a conscious effort. Tyrese Maxey, in particular, made a conscious effort to start grabbing a ton of rebounds. Was sick of seeing him not go his way. And they went and they battled. And Quentin Grimes had a huge game off the bench in game 5. Embiid was very good. Maxey was good. And Paul George, like everyone was quite good in game 5. And it was one of those runs that you never see the Sixers have, where the Sixers are up like 3 with 7 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and they finish the game on a 16-3 run in the final 7 minutes. And you're like, wow, like that always happens to the Sixers. You get a screenshot of the score and time, and then the final, and it's like, well, that's a disaster. And this time they did it to them. And that was like a big, like, wow, really, really nice. But still, we felt they were very much against the odds. Like this franchise has never come back from a 3-1 lead. The Celtics have never blown a 3-1 lead. Betting odds when it was game 5, 3-1, Boston was like minus 2,200. Even after game 5, they were still like extremely heavy favorites. It felt like they still had a massive mountain to climb. You get into game 6, you're at home, the crowd's going nuts. The team plays awesome. They play up to the crowd. The second half, they really take over and balloon the lead big, and they pretty comfortably take game 6 to set themselves up for a game 7 in Boston. And that's at that point, it was like all you could ask for. And then you have all the game 7 demons, John. You have Embiid's 0-3 in game 7s. All 3 game 7s are like extremely dramatic. The Kawhi shot, the Hawks, Ben Simmons moment, not taking the layup or dunking it and passing instead. The Celtics game where, the game's a 3-point game with like 8 minutes in the third quarter, and then all of a sudden you blink and Tatum's got 50, and you're just it's dramatic, it's historic, it's unbelievable. And those are your 3 game 7 losses, and you're just like, man, they're tough. They're all very frustrating. And then the tide kind of turned. The Sixers came out hot. They got out to like an 8-0 lead, and you just felt them set the tone and bring the tone to Boston. And obviously, a big factor of that game is Jason Tatum didn't play. I'm not making that an excuse. It's just the fact of what had happened. Embiid missed 3 games. Their guy missed 1 game. We won 1 game. They missed they didn't get a
Well,
chance. So
Michael, they've only had Jason Tatum for 16 games all season because of him rehabbing. They've won
right,
55. They won 55 plus. They won 52 games this year. How many games did they win this year?
they won close to 60 games this year.
Right, and not
Um,
to diminish Tatum, but it's not like they were. It's not like the roles are flipped where we were the 2 seed, they were the 7th seed because they didn't have Tatum.
yeah,
Right, and
yeah.
so yeah, I would say watching that game 7, that was the most anxiety a Philly playoff game has given me since the Eagles played the Rams in the divisional round.
Yeah, that game 7 gave me a lot of agita. Um, it just I can't believe I just really couldn't believe that they won. On top of just like how well, you know, the guys played. Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, first NBA teammates to both have 30, 10, and 5 in a game 7. The first teammates to have 30 and 10 since Kobe and Shaq in a game 7 since Kobe and Shaq. And it's just like those two played so well. Paul George was sick from the night before and still put together a good performance. Kelly Oubre was making some really nice cuts to getting some easy buckets, and Edgecombe had big threes down the stretch. And it's really, really all you could ask for. But it was just so typical. Embiid goes to the bench for like 2 minutes, and all of a sudden the lead gets evaporated. He comes back in, and it balloons back up a little bit. And it's just the very typical nature of what his career has been. And then like the end sequence in the fourth quarter was just unreal. The Celtics kind of stopped taking threes a little bit and start taking their twos, and they dig into the lead. The Sixers start looking a little tired, and B looks exhausted. Looks like his
Well,
body's taking a
let's
beating.
also remember, and this is another thing I want to point out is if you look at like the history of the NBA, with the exception of the Los Angeles Lakers, Boston has always gotten the best whistle ever.
Hmm.
So and you're in Boston. That's a very important detail we want to bring in for this too. They're in Boston. They're not in Philadelphia.
They did get robbed in Philadelphia. We have very good data of getting robbed at home. So
Right.
I think
Right.
it
But
used to be a little bit of a bigger deal where you were playing in terms of getting hosed. But no, it's the Celtics. I did feel as though they had a very favorable whistle that whole series. There was like many out of bounds calls that were just very obviously off a Celtic that they were calling Celtics ball and like forcing Nick Nurse to challenge, and you're just like, it's one of these days. Like it's one of these days. But you get into the guts of the game, the Celtics make it close, and we're down 1, or we're up 1. Excuse me, Sixers are up 1. Celtics were down 1, and wide open 3, Peyton Pritchard with 2 minutes to go, that doesn't go in. And it's just like, that is the shot that has gone in against the Sixers every time without fail in the playoffs for the last 8 years. Truly, every team has a shot where it's like you're in the guts of a close game, you're tight, get beat, someone's got an open shot, they are never missing it. And he missed it. And it was like, oh my God, maybe it's different. Maybe it really is different. And then
Maybe
Maxi,
that's right. That's the what's funny. I think the comp. I think a comp I saw was imagine how like everyone was pissed at AJ Brown for dropping those passes. Like you probably saw his drop compilation from 2025.
I've seen it plenty.
I'm sure you've seen it plenty. That's what it felt like, but the reverse. It's like he always makes those. Like Brown
Yeah.
always makes these shots, or these always go in. It's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know,
I hear you. I hear you. It is true. It's what it felt like. And then you get the shock factor of it all. But he misses, Sixers go down. They, you know, Maxi extends the lead with a layup that was like finally because Embiid looks visibly exhausted and had gotten banged into his knees like a couple times and was getting his hip stretched out on the sideline very dramatically. And
yeah,
Maxi gets a big layup and you're like, "Holy shit, John, they might actually be doing it right now. The thing
right.
might be happening right
Let
in
me
front of our eyes."
let me ask you something too. So I kind of want to get big picture here. How did you feel about Embiid like kind of getting his flowers for um
I want to talk about this after we finish up the game. I do want to talk about the flowers as
well
soon as we finish
let's
up.
finish up the game because like the
Yeah.
game was pretty much over when they just kept bricking threes and everyone was kind of, like I don't know about you but I was thinking like why aren't they set why are they trying to shoot so many frees just drive the lane and get a whistle and get up a couple and ones you're back in the game.
Yeah, and they did that to get to the game, to get into it, and then they missed the big three. Jalen Brown, after a maxi layup, pushes off, doesn't get a foul, but then misses the jumper, and then Maxi makes another layup as like the ultimate dagger. Embiid plays like an incredible defensive possession up five, forcing a Sam Hauser miss, and then they ice it out. And yeah, like you said, the flowers. It felt really, really, really nice to see the narrative flip in real time. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Joel has gotten nothing but crap nationally and big on NBA Twitter, just never given the benefit of the doubt, never given any like excuse from anyone outside of the fan base, and even the fan base struggles to give him excuses. Um, and he was getting praise. He was getting a lot of respect. He was getting a lot of appreciation. I think it's because it's an injury. It truly, the sad truth is that it was an injury that nearly like that could kill somebody. So because it finally was like an injury where it's like we can't just make fun of his knees or something like that, he was actually going to die. It felt like that finally gave a new perspective to everybody of like, oh wow, he really is a warrior and plays through everything. Even though he's been doing this for 8 years, it's nothing new. Um, it just gave all those people a new perspective, and with that came limitless and limitless praise and flowers for how he was able to play in the games when he returned, and especially his game 7 performance.
Well, I think a lot of people saw all these injuries that kind of plagued the NBA all season. And I think the fact that he's like probably the only one that really rushed back to play. I think fans in general are like thinking, wow, like look all these injuries Joel Embiid's had throughout his career, and he's putting it all on the line, in the face, and the fact they're underdogs. That's the thing. It's not like they're favored, and it's like, oh, what a
Hmm.
gutsy performance by Joel Embiid to help secure the win because they need him. They were down 3-1. He came back and he was like that doesn't happen all the time in pro sports, Michael. It's pretty rare. That would be like, I don't know. Imagine the Eagles, like Jalen is hurt for half the season and it's like they're in the wild card and he comes back, he's still hurt and he throws 4 touchdowns and the Eagles win.
Yeah,
Sure.
no, the football comparison, it definitely can kind of give you another look for it. No, I mean, it's remarkable. I mean, we just it's sorta like, well, it's not like much of anything, honestly. It's just not something you see very often. You know, a guy return this quickly from something like that, and then so quickly, like, end up playing to what his standard is at this point in his career with his body and his health. So yeah, he deserves a ton of credit, and he was finally getting it, and it was really nice. It was so fun to scroll on Twitter and see all the edits. You know, Peyton Pritchard talking trash before he gets there, saying they're not thinking about him too much. Jalen Brown saying that the Sixers are better without him, and then literally breaking his brain to the point where he's having mental breakdowns on Twitch talking about Game 7, saying that there's a league-wide agenda against him, and it's like, I can't even get mad at those sort of things because of how sweet it is and ridiculous and funny it is that he's going on those crazy tangents, and it's
Dude,
just
could you
it's
imagine?
feasting so well in that series.
Yeah, because I agree. Because to me, it was like, yeah, Jalen Brown probably right now, if you're to say who's the most disliked player in the NBA, I bet you he wasn't even the top 20. I think if you were ran that a poll like that after that tangent, people would look at him and be like, he is like whatever like stereotypes you have on NBA players or like about like how they're self absorbed, no accountability, you know, unable to
Yeah,
read
no,
the
for
room.
sure, like, it's definitely, I mean, he just sounded very whiny, I felt.
I thought the worst thing he said was, "This was my favorite year of my career because I was the number one option."
Yeah, like him yeah, and it's in a year where he won the finals, not only won the finals, but won finals MVP. It's not like he had a bad finals and is just that selfish about it. Like, it was a year he had success, was celebrated, and played the best in the championship versus the year where, he just puts up a lot of volume numbers because he's the only guy. And
Yeah,
but I'm very happy that listen, the Sixers might have sent Boston to go blow their whole thing up. They're gonna have a pretty big offseason. But
that's another thing too, man. It's like the Eagle. It's like Philly sports now. You saw what the Eagles were like the dynasty killers. Whoever this Tatum Brown dynasty that the Celtics have had, the Sixers have effectively ended it.
well, let's make sure that it does get blown up before
I mean,
God forbid we start
potentially.
putting some karmic forces next year. Yeah, no, for sure.
I mean, shoot, man. You see what's going on with the Chiefs. Like everyone's just kind of assuming because they're going to be back. You know, they might need a couple years to rebuild. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. But setting up into the next round, Sixers Knicks. Really tough game one loss last night, but it almost felt like a scheduled loss. The NBA, I really don't like what they went and did with the scheduling, I guess. Not to be like a total baby about it, but it really is just feels like kind of crap that it's like you play game 7 on Saturday night and you have to turn around and play game 1 Monday. Yeah, it's like, "Oh, well, the Knicks didn't go to 7," and it's like, sure, that's all great. It doesn't like, the Knicks with an extra day, or they still would have more rest than the Sixers, you know what I
Let's
mean?
Michael. Let's be honest. Did you watch that's Game 6 of the Hawks and the Knicks?
Yeah.
That game was over 5 minutes into the second quarter.
Yeah, no, I know. So the Knicks have been very well rested, and it looked like it last night. They came out, they had a ton of energy, they were making all of their shots, and the Sixers looked like a team that tried really hard for the first, you know, 18 minutes of the game, 16 minutes of the game or so, and then they were just dead tired. They were just exhausted, and they were getting burned on everything. Their shots weren't falling. They were very stagnant on offense. They were just dead, and it's frustrating. But Nurse did get them out at some point early ish in the third quarter, and they were able to get as much rest as humanly possible because this series is going to be a grind in a very blunt way. The Knicks are a better team than the Celtics. The Celtics have their method of winning, and that's very successful. But in terms of just like, you know, reliable depth scoring and um, kind of consistent playoff star power and defensive versatility, even with a couple weak links on the defensive end. They're about as good as it gets, and deserve to be favored to come out of the East, no doubt about it. Um, and they're just a much more physical team than the Boston Celtics. The Sixers brought the physicality in the Celtics series, and you saw how that changed the complexion of the game and how uncomfortable the Celtics got offensively and how Embiid was just kind of able to bully his way freely throughout the entire series. And you saw it for parts of last night, but just the fact of the matter is that this series is going to be a much more physically demanding series for the Sixers. Embiid's going to be really battling with Towns and Mitchell Robinson. Even if they, foul and stuff, it doesn't matter. They just got a lot of ways they can throw at him. And if they want to, they can eventually turn to OG Anunoby to guard him too, who's seen success guarding him, a guy that's just super strong and definitely athletic enough to keep up with Embiid, especially at this point in his career. So that's a tough matchup for him. And it puts a lot of the, I guess, responsibility of the offensive workload on Tyrese Maxey and Paul George and BJ Edgecombe, I'll say the guards as a whole, but especially Maxey. Um, he's got to have a big series. He's got to get those motors going and be able to speed around guys and open things up with his excellent driving ability. And Edgecombe's got to have a similar effect on the game. And it's really going to be guard dominant. You got to be able to hunt Brunson where you can on defense, and you know, try to get him a little more tired and involved on defense so he isn't able to just thrash you on offense consistently. Because,
Yeah,
I very much dislike Jalen Brunson a lot. He is a very good player and he's a very consistent scorer. So you got to be able to take your edges where you can. And if getting him
it's just
involved defensively
it's
gasses
it's
him,
just
that's what
tough
you
right
got to do.
now, Michael. It's just really tough right now that the Knicks are just red hot shooting. Like the Sixers were down 25 points at halftime, and they had 10 guys in double figures.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Like, what are you
listen,
supposed to
it's
do?
no, I mean, they game one result, like, they're not gonna shoot nearly 70% from the field and
You know,
55% from
what's
3.
what's kind of frustrating from being from this area is I'm watching the Nova Knicks cook us on a game one. And I'm thinking like, bro, I feel like I'm watching them in the NCAA tournament when Brunson and all them dudes were cooking like NC State, Michigan.
Yeah. No, no, for sure. It is definitely, it's just when they're on, they're definitely a very good team, and it's a tough series. They're rightfully deserved to be underdogs, but there are things. The Sixers are a good matchup for the Knicks where they don't have a ton of, like, they're the way that they're constructed, the Sixers do have answers for it, but the effort level and intensity and rebounding's really gotta tick up. Like, Mitchell Robinson, as funny as it was to watch him get hacked, and honestly was probably the most successful things the Sixers did last night, he's a great offensive rebounder. He averages, just under 5 offensive rebounds a game, playing under 20 minutes a game in the regular season. That's pretty remarkable. And he definitely has a place in this series against Embiid, just to be a physical body. Even if Embiid scores and has a good day, it's just going to be a lot more difficult than it was in the Celtics series for him, just because of the size that the Knicks possess. But your best bet to kind of get back in the series and win game two, and then ultimately the way to just continue winning in the series would be, you just have to play better, make some tactical adjustments, sure, but really commit to staying in front of your man and not letting them get in that drives. The big difference
Yeah,
between the Celtics and the Knicks.
I did feel like you know when you're an underdog team. I think this is a great segue into the Flyers. Is when you have like no time to really prepare for game one, and the
Yeah.
other team does. Like that's the advantage of sweeping teams or getting your first round matchup done as fast as possible.
Yeah. So let's pivot to the Flyers. What do you want to talk about first with them?
Well, So we did talk about them beating the Penguins, and that was obviously very cathartic as well.
Hmm.
Um, you know, you and I were not very big fans of how fast they had to pivot into, game one. They got smoked game one. I think you said the comp you gave was felt like what 2022 Eagles Giants, except the Flyers were the Giants. The comp I said, I'm trying to be positive. I was like, oh, this is like the 2021 Eagles Bucks, where like they snuck into the playoffs at the end of the season, and you know,
Yeah, it's just the same thing the Giants did, except the Giants won a playoff game and the Eagles didn't. Um,
dude, I don't want.
the Giants were able to beat an overrated.
Oh God, is Devo supposed to be like
No,
Daniel
we're not gonna go. We're not going player
Jones?
to player, no. But we're gonna go that it's a team that just like won a playoff game by being kind of feisty. And the team you were playing wasn't all that great. And then you're going to playing against like the class of the league, and it's just it doesn't look like the same sport is taking place. You know what I mean? Like it's
That
just a
was
total
game one, and
demolition.
honestly, I think Tockett, he said that we just had no time to really prepare. And I was like, he was right. I agree. And then last night was a complete 180. The Flyers were the team that were in the driver's seat at the start. Unfortunately, as you saw, the Canes they run the trap very well. But Michael, they do also dump and chase, but the big difference is between the Flyers and the Canes are the Flyers just lack size. Or they lack
Yeah,
size guys with speed, and I think, it's not to make excuses, but I think it's worth noting Owen Tippett not missing the first two games has been
yeah.
very
No, I mean
noticeable.
it matters. They definitely miss his speed on that in that series. But what's annoying, like last night's game, they come out hot. They scored 2 goals in the first 5 minutes. You're like, holy shit, this is crazy. Um, And they threatened at various points throughout. I mean, hell, they had 7 power plays, only scored once and only 3 shots or 2 shots, so really just the embarrassment of a power play, but it's one of those series where you definitely see the value in having this being played. The young guys are getting a lot of great experience, learning how the playoffs work and what it's like to go against some great teams. And you can really much accept that. And the way that they're even playing, you can accept that your team has a lot of young guys on it. And this is just what it looks like. This is a group that they're going against that is very familiar with the playoffs. They've made 3 conference finals. They've made the playoffs 7 years in a row. Like they're a great team that has had a lot of regular season success and like some pretty solid postseason success, although they haven't fully broken through yet. And the way that they look like a team that's completely overmatched and new to the playoffs and all that sort of stuff. And all that's really fine. What's just annoying, and again, not that it matters a ton, but it should kind of help you figure out what to do with certain players in the offseason is you want your veterans that have been in the playoffs before and the guys that have been around the block for a while to perform as such and play as such. And ultimately, we know where this is heading, but I want to start where it's like you look at a guy like Sean Couturier, who's 33 years old, whose best days are very far behind him because he it had a ton of injuries. Like he's a guy that won the Selke Award and then had some brutal back injuries that slowed him down as a player, really hindered his offensive game, and it made him almost like a shell of himself to the point where, almost universally, Flyers fans and analysts alike are saying how bad the Sean Couturier contract is, and it really is unfortunate. And here's a guy that comes into these playoffs like a brand new man with playing to the quite literally probably the like highest level he could possibly be playing at in the current state that his body is in. The maximum ability that he is able to produce with his physical well-being at this current moment. That's electric. Get ready to see. That's awesome right there, man. Christopher Sanchez, humongous.
No, yeah,
I
you
am a
spoiled.
little ahead.
Yeah,
I got excited. Sorry, but um,
no, Michael, you know what? I agree because you know what watching Kutz's playoff run kind of reminded me of. It was Mike. I remember Mike Richards near the end of his career with the Sacramento. The Sacramento Kings,
the Los Angeles
the
Kings.
Los Angeles Kings. Excuse me. And where he was like in the same boat, like his body was breaking down super quickly, and he was a fourth liner, but when he was in the playoffs, he's as throughout his entire career,
Entire career.
he's always been a menace during the playoffs.
Playoff producer, man. And Sean Couturier, although isn't seeing a ton of point production because he, well, is on the fourth line with some not so good players, his impact is felt pretty much every shift, and he's really carrying that line and playing it really well. And he finally gets a goal. My point to say is that a guy like Sean Couturier, who's always been a playoff producer, even from his first postseason back in 2012, all the way through, 2018 was incredible. Had the, yeah, against the Penguins 2018, had a pretty solid bubble, and comes here and is having a really nice playoff. Sanheim, guy that really seems to put together and elevated his play in these playoffs, has been really, really good. Dan Vladar, veteran that's showing up for his team, even though it's his first, big postseason run. And then you look at Travis Konechny, and here's a guy that in 30 playoff games has just 14 points and only 2 goals. And what's frustrating is that you could watch Travis Konechny, show him to a player that's a person who's never watched hockey before, tell him to guess their age, and they'd probably say someone in their mid-30s. Like, the way Travis Konechny moves out there and decisions that he makes and his inability to keep the puck on his stick, it's just reminiscent of that of like a 35-year-old. And he's 29. He's supposed to be in his age prime. He is supposed to be at like peak physical performance for an athlete, and he just looks washed. And it culminates in getting a golden, beautiful opportunity on a breakaway in overtime and not scoring, whether it went wide, whether it got saved, or whatever. He shoots it from like 20 feet out instead of trying to get a little bit closer, make a move. Like, it's just not trusting his speed to trying to take a shot from far out on a wide, very clear breakaway. And he doesn't score. And eventually they come around and lose. And it's just like, he's very accountable about it. Obviously, he always is. But it's frustrating. It really, really is for a guy that has consistently not shown up this time of year, whether that be the regular season or the playoffs. Late in the season, it's just not his forte.
Dude, it's
And
not. I agree, Michael. I 100% agree. It's not a good sign when Chris Therien said the Flyers should really ask him to waive his no movement clause. That's not.
yeah,
That's not me saying that. That's Chris Therien, who's been covering this. Been basically, I feel like ever since he retired, he's been an announcer,
yeah,
pundit.
no, and it's valid because when you're in a playoff series where you're just like, we're just happy to be here, basically, and like that's very okay, and your young guys getting really good experience. When you play a good enough game, you want your veterans to be the ones that you can rely on to kind of step up and steal something for you and bail everybody out. And it's just not something he's been able to do. And that puts you in such a bind because it's like, man, this is a guy like who just seems very replaceable. Because what is he? He's a middle six forward that will get you around like 60 to 65 points a season. That's not
I
something
bet
that's super worth 9 million,
if he was on a team that had a couple 40 goal scorers on it, he'd probably rack up 80 points. I think with a lot of
But
assists.
like it
With a
just
lot of
feels
assists.
like it's a guy like he shouldn't he just wouldn't be on their top line though. Like he's just not a top line player.
Well, he
He
would be like
isn't.
a secondary, like assist guy, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I just think even then it's a very replaceable player. It's not a player that isn't easy to find. People always say, "Oh, well, we'll be wishing we had a guy like TK," and maybe like some of his energy and spunk or whatever. But it's like I need I need production. And you had a chance to be the hero and make a big play and be like the face of a big Flyers moment, and you can't get it done and you can't score. And
Yeah, well, if you look at TK's playoffs, well, so Game 6 overtime whiffed on a goal that he probably should have put away.
buried, yep.
Almost cost him the game. Luckily, Cam York bailed him out. A minute or two later, and then last night, breakaway. And I just don't understand why he didn't try to like deke
That's what it just get a little
Freddie Anderson
closer.
out because when you're going to breakaway, like dude, like I'm shocked in like 11, 12 years in the NHL he doesn't have some type of move when he has a breakaway. You know,
Yeah, and even if he does, he just didn't trust his speed in that moment. When it's like that's really tough to not trust your speed there. And it's just so frustrating.
and so we can't go on the expectation that the Flyers were supposed to win this series. That it's house money.
No, of course not. I
There's a
mean,
and honestly, there's a lot of positives to gain from this too. But Michael, I do agree with you on that because I think the I think like if you're thinking because obviously you're thinking long term, you're not thinking in the moment, right?
no, yeah,
You're thinking long term here. I I comp this team a lot to like the early to mid 2000s Phillies with how you had like the old guard and now you have like the new guard on the team, you
right.
know, and the comp I kind of try to think of would be like if the Phillies never traded Bobby Abreu and if he was on like the '07 playoff run,
Hmm.
the '08 playoff run, he just literally gave you nothing. And Bobby Abreu in his sport's a better player than Konechny, but like,
Yeah, no, that's the principle though. That's what the theoretical would be in this situation.
and he's just go and like let's say like against the Dodge, let's say like he
No,
didn't
it's just valid. He just didn't. It just wouldn't have been he produced, and like that's what Konechny's been his whole career. He's been in the playoffs before and just hasn't been able to totally get it done. And it's one of those things where this is a playoff run that it really is valuable. I'm not saying you should give up on a young guy if they don't produce in the playoffs because why would you do that? That's foolish. The whole point is for them to get experience.
Were you
But
shocked to find out that Travis Konechny's played in 30 playoff games?
I not really like I remember him around in the um let's see here.
It's
Was
not a
he
good look.
around the
It's
first
not a
time
good
in
look when Andrew. It's
2016?
not a good look that Andrew McDonald's got more playoff goals in his career with the Flyers than you do.
Yeah.
That's a
So he
bad look.
wasn't around in 2016 when they played Washington, that's right. But he was around in 2018 when they played against the Penguins, and then the bubble. I mean, I know everyone talks about the bubble the way it is, but the Flyers ended up playing, what, 13 games in the bubble, or 12 at least, but I think it was 13. And, they went to 6 against the Penguins. He's played in plenty. I mean, and again, it's not, it's just annoying. It's one of the things where the front office should be looking at the veterans very deeply and be like a guy like, you know what, Kyle Couturier, that's our captain, and he's playing like the captain should be, and you know what, that deserves to be
Yeah,
on this team.
it's not a good look when the guy that has the back of a 95-year-old man is able to still score goals.
It's
And
just be productive. And you look at, what Sanheim's done, where he's been like the horse on the back end, playing almost 30 minutes a night, and just like really being like a black hole for offensive players. Like the puck gets around Sanheim and he's making a great play with it, breaking everything up. He's really
ever
been
since you called him
tremendous.
out for the Detroit game when Moritz Seider was tormenting the Flyers, you were like,
Yes,
why
yes.
can't Sanheim be like that? And he was like,
He stepped up level
F
of play, and
Michael,
it's
I am gonna be like that. Like
and it's
you're right,
like
bro. That's a good. I
while
mean,
yeah, while Sanheim's not like the top end guy, he's still obviously like a top, I don't know, 15, 20 defenseman in the NHL, and that's a 1D for you. Just because it's not. the 5, doesn't make it nothing. And he's played great, and he deserves, the A that he has on his jersey. And then you just look at Konechny, and it's like, dude, when I need you the most, what? Oh, Why can't you just produce for me, man? And listen, he can shut up a lot of people with some big games at home here in the next 2 days. But if he continues to struggle and goes out quietly and they get swept or losing 5 or whatever, it really would behoove the team to
It's
look try to move
frustrating
off of him.
because when Martone got called up, TK was playing really well with him, and now that like Martone's kind of
Yeah.
cooled off, you're
I mean, that just goes to kinda show you a lot of people wanted to give credit, um, of, like, "Oh, Konechny's doing a lot for Martone here," but it really was the 19-year-old with a ton of skill that was carrying that line, and as the 19-year-old has seemingly hit a little bit of a wall and is struggling a little bit with the physicality and the speed of playoff hockey and, like, this brain processing speed, he's making a lot of, I think, just wrong decisions. Should probably just be opting to shoot the puck more than he is, but as he slowed down, yes, you're right. Konechny has slowed down tremendously, and it just kind of shows you where it's coming from. So we'll see how these next 2 home games go. It's a series that I had very little expectations for, and after the first game, I really just thought they might get ran out of the building. It and again, for parts of last night, it kind of felt like they were as good as they came out, and as hard as they fought, and as pretty good of a controlling overtime period as they had. There were just way too many warts that made it seem like they didn't belong, and like the power play being the biggest defender, and at various point like the one goal they allowed was just a straight up disaster from 3 of the 4 penalty killers on the ice. Glendening gets the puck, and instead of just trying to get it out, tries to make a pass. Steelers kinda drifting and doesn't reach or get the puck on a pass that wasn't super accurate, and then Ristolainen took too long to clear the puck, and then eventually, uh, Carolina scored. And it's like it's just frustrating. Like they are not nearly remotely as good as Carolina, and it's very visible at the moment. So they're going to go out. I'm very happy that they valiantly fought, but suffering a loss like that definitely takes a lot of the luster
well.
out of the
Let's talk
series.
about the positives. Is unlike most of the other contenders in the NHL right now, Michael, the Flyers are not going to be in cap hell,
Yeah,
and they're going to have $39 million. Now, granted, they got to re-sign Trevor Zegras, like that's a priority.
yeah,
He
yeah.
needs a new deal, but I don't think he's going to cost $15 million either.
No, not at all. He'll be
No,
right around 9, 10.
9 or 10, right? But looking at this free agent class, like granted, there isn't like a Kaprasov or
No,
um,
there's not a ton of free agents. It would be a trade market. Like the
well, I
NHL
mean,
has
I
been a
did look at
hotbed for
some of the
trade.
names. Like Alex Tuck would be. I think Alex Tuck would be a great fit for the way the
I
Flyers play.
And I get that, and I don't disagree necessarily, but when I look at a guy that's currently on a team that's having their best season as a franchise in like 20 years, and he's having a very solid season, and he's really had a nice little career after his first season in Buffalo after getting moved from Vegas. Like, I just think they probably want to keep him and view him as a big piece for a
I
team.
just feel
And
like they're.
listen, you'll
I
see
just.
when it gets to, but
I mean, we'll see too, but I do
they
think
could
that
get to the conference final, like, they're gonna be favored to beat Montreal,
I
like, they're
I agree.
by the time you get there.
Let's you mentioned the trade market. Well, there was big news that is positive news for the Flyers.
Mhm.
Um, the Toronto Maple Leafs have won the. I got a little different view there for you.
Yeah, turning around to check out the Phillies.
Um,
Nice.
anyway,
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, no, the lottery, the Maple Leafs won the lottery. They'll be picking first overall. NHL continues to struggle to beat the rigging lottery allegations. Big thing of theirs.
So,
Uh,
so let me ask you this, Michael, because this is what's go to a talking point. Why would the NHL rig the draft for the Toronto Maple Leafs to win? What benefit is there to do that for them?
uh, Toronto's a very big market, biggest market
Okay.
in hockey. You know,
Okay.
that's the
Well,
biggest one.
okay. Well, what else? Why else would they possibly do it?
Uh, I mean, they want the Leafs to be good. They want the
The
Leafs to
the
have a
worst
top.
kept secret in hockey is that the Maple Leafs more than likely are going to shop Austin Matthews
Oh, okay,
this
sure, yeah.
offseason. Apparently, their fans were well. I'm trying. How do I bring context here? So the
I mean,
Leafs,
yeah, the
the
Leafs.
Leafs choke nonstop in the playoffs. They haven't won the Stanley Cup since like 1948 or something.
Yeah, I mean, they lose a lot in the early rounds of the playoffs. They definitely are victims of the playoff format. And Matthews has struggled in the playoffs, and like Marner did, and they didn't re-sign Marner, and he went and is having a great season with Vegas, and Toronto struggling a ton and missed the playoffs, and obviously got the first overall pick, and Matthews got hurt, and it just feels like a natural divorce
Well,
is
Austin.
occurring at the
Well,
moment.
let's rewind it back to the Winter Olympics. Austin Matthews is on Team USA. Team USA beats Canada to win the gold medal. Austin Matthews was seen celebrating in the locker room with a certain individual who I'm not going to mention on this podcast. Um, and
I mean,
then
do
he
you think
got
that had something to do with it? I don't know.
no. Well, no. Let me get into it. He was then getting heavily questioned by the Toronto media about that, and they were writing articles about him about they were politicizing him celebrating after Team USA won the gold medal, and a lot of their fans were booing him afterwards. There's a lot of
Yeah, I mean, listen,
there's a
I
lot
think
of
there
a
was
lot
a
of their
lot of
fans dislike Austin Matthews. I guess what I'm trying to say
I mean, there
is
was a lot of hockey reasons too, I think, for the
but
frustrations. It's
along with the hockey, right,
kind
along
of the way
with
the
the
Eagles fans
hockey
treat
reasons,
Donovan.
it really is kind of like Donovan. That's a good comp, and holy smokes.
Wow.
Not sorry.
Bryson Stott, three-run
All right,
homer.
all right, Michael. Next show is Bryson Stock going to get P tested for his power surge over the
And
last
he might be one of my 3 stars. Not to tease the weekend, but my lord, is he scorching hot right now. But yeah, the Leafs and Matthews have been heading down towards this path. Feels like for a few years now. There's a lot of disdain with the fan base, a lot of just like tired of not being successful. Maybe it's more, comparable to like Embiid to an extent, but like regardless, feels like there's a divorce coming. And listen, the Flyers make a lot of sense. They have a lot of things they could offer him. I don't think they have to give up the highest possible echelon of return for him at this stage in his career. So it'll be interesting, but it's something definitely to keep our eyes on because that's the type of player that really does it just helps out. And I know we just talked about not performing in the playoffs, and that's kind of a thing with Austin Matthews, but it's at a point where you would take the trade-off of having just a player of his caliber. Now, maybe he's not maybe his days of scoring 70 goals are past him, but a guy that like, if he played alongside Michkov or Martone or just Forster, if he's playing better, like feels like a guy that would sleepwalk to 40 goals and probably get 50. And it's just not something that this team has had for a very long time in terms of a goal scorer of that high of a caliber. Really, since like what Lindros, like it really Leclaire, like it's really been that long since they've had a
well,
extremely high goal scorer.
this is where the Flyers bring up like all these young guys up to contribute really helps in trade talks because okay,
You see it at the NHL level.
right, yeah, I'm not just granting a prospect. It's like, oh, Alex Bump, oh, he could be like a future. 50, 60 point guy. Throw him in the trade.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, throw in Andre because he can play. We see him play a bunch of games. He's cheap and he's not super expensive. The
Yeah.
big thing is this: the Flyers. It's widely believed that the Flyers are going for this because they made a trade for they trade Scott Lawton last year to the Leafs.
Yeah.
They're going to have their unprotected 2027 pick, and you think with the Matthews divorce, and they also have to work Neese's contract. They're in cap hell. That's the issue.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. They're in cap hell, so they either have to blow it up now because you don't have first round picks in the next two drafts, and you don't have the cap flexibility to just buy your way out of it like most teams would, like the
Yeah.
Florida. And you just don't have a core like the Florida Panthers do, where you could just okay, we're all injured this year, we're gonna get healthy again and regroup.
Hmm.
Like no, they don't
No,
have.
they're in a spot where they probably need to tear it down. And listen, getting the first overall pick, that sure as hell helps, doesn't it? But it just feels like it's inevitable, and I think it's a really big opportunity for the Flyers to pounce on. But yeah,
Michael, when's the last time the Flyers have made a major offseason move where they acquired a big name player? And when I say big name player, I don't mean like Trevor Zegras because he was just misused in Anaheim and was struggling. I mean
I mean, the
like
biggest name they probably picked up that wasn't like very old was probably like Brizgalov.
yes,
That's
Michael,
probably the
that
last
was
time they made a
14 years ago.
Yeah, that's probably the last time they made a big acquisition for a big name that was like, whoa. And then like before that, it was like Pronger. Um, but
Well,
no,
this is
yeah,
part of being
it's
a Michael. Part of like growing up as a Flyers fan, it was like the Flyers would make big moves like all the time to try to win,
yeah.
and like I think now, thank the Lord, like the purgatory appears.
It seems like you're butting out of it.
It's
Seems
like
like you're
it's
butting
like
out
you're
of it.
seeing the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. Listen, this is still purgatory for what it's worth. Like being the eighth overall seed, like obviously division nonsense, whatever, playoff format be damned. But to have the least amount of points among the Eastern Conference playoff teams, that's I still consider that purgatory. You know what I mean? Like now, but you're like you're right. You're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel now. We see it. We have a visualization of what it could look like. Now is the time where you strike and you add to it. You can't just get content and be like, well, let's run it back with all their young guys and see how they develop and progress. And listen, we made it through the second round last year. Maybe we could do it again, and then we'll reevaluate. It's like no, you've been having plenty of time to evaluate a lot of these guys. It's time to keep a lot of young guys and trust them, but it's time for a veteran shakeup a little bit. Look to acquire and get better. Look to get another top D man for Sanheim, and maybe that involves trading Ristolainen and try to get a top center, whether that be Matthews, or Robert Thomas. So we'll see. Obviously, we still have the playoffs to handle. Um, you know, we wanted this to be a little quick show, so we'll wrap up here. Phillies are up 6-0. Sanchez pitching into the eighth inning. Looks like he's pretty dialed. 6-0 Phils.
We're gonna
That's
see.
great.
So yeah, so I guess a preview for the weekend show. We're gonna see an agenda-filled Michael's 3 stars. We're gonna see Knowles in the top 3 stars.
We got a long ways to go. We'll see. It's only Tuesday, right? Um, but the 3 stars, so far so good. We'll talk more about the Phillies this weekend. Obviously, by Saturday, we'll have been through 3 games of Sixers Knicks, and we'll be through also 3 games of Flyers Hurricanes. Their next game is Thursday, so they have an extra little day off here. Wow, 9 strikeouts for Sanchez. So we'll see. We will see. Hopefully, we have some good news for you, and this weekend isn't totally somber. But thank you all for tuning in to this Tuesday evening edition, this little Cinco de Mayo celebration. We really wanted to get this in. The biggest ticket item was to be able to talk about the Sixers Celtics series. That's something we didn't want to save till the weekend where they could be down, 3-0 or 2-1 to the Knicks and things are just looking dire. And it's like, oh, well, remember this happened last week. So we wanted to be able
Yeah,
to
and honestly, dude, I
gleefully
feel like
talk about it.
you know what? I think when we traded Jared McCain for like draft picks to like
Yeah.
make another move, I kind of feel like if
If they made the other move.
I will no longer refer to this person by name on this show.
Yeah.
Uh, the owner of the team maybe will open up the purse strings and maybe let us add another
Yeah,
player.
yeah, they could have definitely used, another piece, that's for sure, but, whatever, they're just gonna have to grind it out, and hopefully we got some good news to talk about Saturday, but that'll do it for tonight. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will catch you all this weekend.
We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Pod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.